army in uproar. Jimin, one of the members of BTS, shockingly revealed the story of his strong persona, a confession that not only shook fans, but also opened a serious space of discussion about identity, self-image, and resilience of a public figure under global spotlight. How could a world star with such a stellar reputation still feel the need to assert a narrative about his strength? This question now teases the public, sparking curiosity while unveiling how an idol faces the complexities of personal and professional life. Jimin's statement does not stand in an empty space. It comes in a social context where the public often demands perfection from the figures they admire. BTS, as a global cultural phenomenon, has birthed a heroic narrative of hard work, solidarity, and triumph. Yet, behind the scenes, each member carries personal stories that are not always reflected on stage. In his latest interview, Jimin candidly revealed how he built a strong persona not only for the fans, but for himself. This statement immediately sent the army, the term for his fans, into uproar, because it unveiled a side of vulnerability he rarely shows. What exactly does Jimin mean by a strong persona? Amid the bustle of the entertainment world, strength is often interpreted merely as physical or performative. But Jimin emphasized that true strength lies in emotional resilience, the ability to rise, endure, and maintain identity even when struck by immense pressure. He recounted how criticism, expectations, and even personal anxiety frequently tested his limits. It was precisely there that the process of building strength took place, a process filled with wounds, yet producing a firmer version of himself. This narrative becomes important not only because it comes from a global celebrity, but because it touches a universal issue of identity and resilience. Jimin shows that identity is not something static. It is both a social and personal construct, constantly shaped by experience, criticism, and life's journey. In Jimin's case, the identity of being a member of BTS often overshadows his personal identity as an individual. The confession about a strong persona instead becomes his way of affirming his existence beyond the superstar label. The uproar of the army on social media is clear evidence of how Jimin's confession was received enthusiastically. Thousands of comments, posts, and even fan analyses flooded timelines, highlighting his words as an act of courage. Fans did not only see it as a confession, but as an inspiration for living their own lives. Here lies the reciprocal relationship between idol and fans, a personal narrative transformed into collective motivation. Even so, Jimin's statement also triggered debate. Some argue that this story revelation is a communication strategy to reinforce BTS's image as an icon of resilience and hard work. However, regardless of the speculated motives, its social impact is real. Discussions about mental health, public pressure, and the importance of building personal resilience resurfaced. In a world where social media often displays false perfection, Jimin's confession stands out as a fresh and stirring contrast. Interestingly, the narrative of strength he presented was not wrapped in arrogance. On the contrary, Jimin admitted that he is fragile, often gripped by anxiety, even doubting himself. This very admission makes his story stronger because it brings forth honesty rarely seen in celebrity discourse. Behind the image of a perfect idol, there is a human who struggles, is wounded, then rises again. This is the real strength born from vulnerability. Academically, Jimin's story can be read as a form of resistance against stereotypes of masculinity in Korea's entertainment industry. Instead of highlighting physical strength or dominance, he offers a new perspective, emotional strength as the core of modern identity. This perspective is not only relevant to the world of K-pop, but also opens broad discussions about how the younger generation is redefining the meaning of resilience in their daily lives. In the end, the army's uproar is not merely about Jimin's words, but about the mirror he presented. He shows that behind the grand stage, every individual wrestles with existential questions. Who am I? How do I endure? And where does my true strength lie? By revealing the story of his strong persona, Jimin is not only speaking for himself, but also for millions of people seeking the same answers. Army uproar is not without reason. Jimin's confession is a pivotal moment showing that strength is not about never falling, but about the courage to rise and remain oneself. The resonance of Jimin's statement shows that a celebrity's identity is never entirely personal. Every word spoken, every story shared, immediately belongs to the public. In this sense, Jimin is not merely talking about himself. He is creating a new space of conversation about the meaning of strength in the modern era. The next question arises: should true strength be displayed to the public, or rather safeguarded as a personal secret? Fans, or the army, seem to find a reflection of themselves in that confession. Many of them shared personal experiences about depression, failure, or struggles against life's pressures, and related them to Jimin's narrative. At this point, an idol is no longer just a stage star, but a source of emotional validation for millions. This phenomenon reveals the depth of the relationship between a public figure and the supportive community around them. On the other hand, the publication of Jimin's strength narrative can also be understood as part of the entertainment industry's strategy. BTS and their agency have long been known as masters of weaving personal stories of members into collective narratives that inspire. Yet here lies Jimin's uniqueness. He presents honesty that is almost untouched by promotional polish. His confession feels raw, genuine, leaving a strong sense of authenticity in the eyes of fans. Is this purely strategy or sincere expression? The answer may lie somewhere in between, a crossroad between personal need and industry demand. Undeniably, the term strong persona that Jimin championed has now grown into a social discourse transcending fandom boundaries. Media, academics, and cultural observers see this statement as a pivotal moment in understanding how the younger generation interprets strength. No longer merely muscles or bravery in facing an enemy, but the ability to admit weakness, confront vulnerability, and keep moving forward. Furthermore, the identity narrative brought by Jimin also reflects cultural transformation in South Korea. In a society that still emphasizes collectivist values and perfection, confessions of anxiety and fragility are considered taboo. Jimin, with his global status, dares to challenge that taboo. He places himself as a human who is not always perfect, and thus shifts the old paradigm towards a new understanding. Resilience does not mean being without wounds, but is born precisely because of wounds. The uproar of the army is concrete evidence of how a statement can shake public space. They did not only welcome it with virtual applause, but also internalize the message into real life. Discussions in online forums, motivational posts, even fan artworks emerged as forms of response. Jimin's personal narrative has grown into a collective narrative that binds a global community in one shared emotional awareness. Viewed from an academic perspective, Jimin's story can be read as a representation of what is called cultural resilience, resilience built not only by individuals, but also by the communities that support them.